any kind of adventure that ever comes up, if I'm invited, I go.
I'm expecting it to be more mentally tough than physically.
I'm looking forward to it, actually, sort of getting back to basics.
Within the first week, everyone's hands are going to be cut and bleeding and building calluses, and it's going to hurt.
I've always had a fantasy about sailing in tall ships.
We do want to try and sail this ship exactly as she would have been sailed, say, over 200 years ago. We want to try and measure ourselves against Captain Cook and his crew.
It's not a reality TV show because it's much more historically based. What we're doing is basically putting 21st century people into an 18th century situation.
I think there are about 6 of us on the whole crew that haven't really done any sailing before.
I know we're planning to do a 18th century sailor's diet.
Right, well, this is the space we're going to live in, about 50 of us, 6 weeks, living, eating and sleeping.
We arrived here, and the indigenous civilization happens to be one of the best fish and chip shops in all of Australia. I've got an ice cream.
Looks so innocuous from here.
We're heading straight for it.
Yeah. Into the abyss.
I need some medical advice. Can you help me?
We write about these things, we read them, but we don't experience history. We don't really feel, smell it, taste it.
This is the story of a ship and a story of 2 adventures. One is happening now, the other more than 200 years ago. A secret voyage that altered the course of history and changed the face of the world. The ship and her crew of 55 have been out to sea for 3 days, getting used to the food.
That's a biscuit.
And the living conditions.
I've got salt in my hair. Okay, my feet ache and smell like of mud.
They're beginning to knit together as a crew.
We'll get there, but you know, willingness is not enough. You've got to acquire the skills.
They have to.
You can't get up and leave, even if you want to.
All away!
It is the first week of an incredible voyage. A 21st century crew sailing an exact replica of the Endeavour, the ship made famous by Captain James Cook when, in 1770, he and his men became the first Europeans to discover the east coast of Australia.
Land ho!
Land ahoy! 2-6-2! 2-6-2! 2-6-2! 2-6-2!
The contemporary adventure follows in the wake of Captain Cook. On board are 15 professionals and 40 volunteers, including Royal Navy sailors, medics, scientists, and historians.
The appeal of the adventure was the prospect of being on an 18th century square rigger. You always see things like that, you hear about things like that, but very seldom do you have the opportunity to experience something like that.
Navigating, eating, and sleeping like 18th century sailors, the crew is discovering what it must have been like for Cook and his men as they sailed into the unknown.
There were certain ways that they did things on 18th century ships that made a lot of sense, and you didn't need to invent the wheel, you just needed to go back and look at the wheel that was put on 200 years ago.
I wanted myself to feel like what it would be like to eat just this hardtack and just this salt beef and whatever fish we could pull over the side. I wanted that, you know? I wanted to see how I would take it. I wanted to see if I got weak.
Some on board are already suffering, according to Claire, the ship's doctor.
Got a list of about 15 people who want to come and see me. I've got bits knocked off everywhere. We're going to have a sort of half-hour surgery sometime after breakfast, try and get through the worst of the knocked off bits.
Cheers. Shane!
Hi, Alan. Shane, one of the New Zealanders, is finding other problems with shipboard life.
Shane, I've had an awful lot of complaints about snoring this morning. Are you sleeping next to anyone that snores?
Yes, I am.
Are you?
Well, I could be
What's
another
it
world.
like?
I could be another world away from Mickey, and I still hear him. He's a bloody nightmare.
This is Mickey, a radar operator on leave from the Royal Navy.
Hello. I was having a little snooze.
Watch! Stand by, 4 course line! Mind your course. 2-6. 2-6. 2-6. 2-6. 2-6.
This voyage will trace Cook's journey up the Australian coastline, which he discovered and explored for months. And like Cook, these sailors must weave their way through the treacherous Great Barrier Reef, its sharp coral teeth sometimes just inches below the surface. This morning, the ship approaches Endeavour Reef, a huge bank of coral 3 miles offshore.
Way too early on the braces, guys.
This is the very reef that nearly did in Cook's ship on the night of June 11th, 1770. Everything that happened that night was recorded in Cook's journal.
The ship struck and stuck fast. This was an alarming and I may say terrible circumstance and threatened immediate destruction to us.
These people did feel they were in mortal peril. I mean, they're absolutely on the other side of the world. They've hit a reef out in the middle of nowhere, as you can see. I mean, there's this huge horizon all around us of sea, and they're going to go down, but there's no talk of praying, there's no talk of sensibility, there's no talk of the loved ones back home. It's just a professional response. This is a crisis. Sailors behave in this kind of professional way.
I resolved to risk all and heave her off the reef. We continued to lighten her by every method we could think of.
Cook was really shocked to find that the tide didn't lift the boat enough to get off. He talked to the sailors, and some of the sailors said to him, well, the tide will be higher at midnight. And he said this is where he got his advice from his own people, and so he tried to get off at night, and sure enough, the tide was higher. So this man had a very good relationship with his men, and obviously trusted their judgments.
Eventually the ship floated, but still the leak was increasing upon the pumps. One of my midshipmen then proposed that we follow the ship. This he had witnessed in a merchant ship which sprung a leak coming home from Virginia to London. The manner this is done is thus. We mix rope, tar and wool together with sheep's dung and other filth and stick it loosely by handfuls all over a sail. The sail, thus prepared, is hauled and tightened under the ship's bottom to stop up the hole. I must say that no men ever behaved better than they have done on this occasion. Every man seemed to have a just sense of the danger we were in and exerted himself to the very utmost.
Before leaving Endeavour Reef, a salute to Cook and his men. 30 miles north lies Cooktown, the natural harbor to which the captain gently coaxed his damaged ship for repair. The waters were treacherous, and he had no charts or even an accurate chronometer.
What have you found this morning?
Together with astronomer Charles Green, Cook calculated his latitude, longitude, and time of day by reference to the sun, the moon, and the planets, as well as complex almanacs. The 21st century voyage does have charts, and will need them, until the navigators are practiced enough in the lost art of 18th century navigation.
We are trying to plot the position of the ship and be reasonably accurate about that, using dead reckoning, using anything we can get, the time checks, the solar observations, the lunar distance measurements at night of Mars and things of that sort. And it's a challenge. It's a major challenge. There are three of us. There's the young astronomer, David, and there's John Jeffrey, who's amazingly experienced and very professional, and there's me. And the three of us together are just about sort of starting to cope with it after a week. But it'll be a struggle all the way. And you can sometimes be 50, 60 miles off using this sort of procedure. And that's, by modern standards, a huge margin of error.
4 to 4. 6 to 4.
I do admire the people who ventured forth into completely unknown oceans where they knew nothing about where anything was, without the sort of basic tools that we take for granted. Accurate time, accurate position finding equipment of one sort or another, accurate compasses, for heaven's sake, experts available at most ports to help you with your diesel engine or your sails or whatever. They had to do everything themselves.
I've always been very interested in exploration. And so it seemed a natural link to look at the Navy, maritime adventure and exploration and discovery. And there was only really one man that came to mind, that was James Cook, one of the greatest discoverers and explorers of all time. So we then found out, we didn't know, but we then found out, well, there's an exact replica of his ship in Australia. So everything seemed to come together. You know, it's just that one little idea, and it initiated the development of the whole series, really. So somebody came out and checked out the Endeavour, the replica. We went into negotiations. Could we hire it for a while? It happened to be free in the period that we wanted to make the film. It just all clicked in. It had to be. It had to be.
An 18th century voyage had to be entirely self-sufficient. A goat was kept on board to provide milk for the gentleman's tea. This voyage also has its goat, Wilhelmina, who's sick.
Unfortunately, as we were cleaning up the breakfast stuff, I noticed that the goat, her front elbows look really sore. They normally just have a little bald patch on the front, but this one, her elbows are really swollen and she's got like all red on them. So I'm going to squirt her with some iodine in a moment, which she's going to love licking off. It's going to be cold. Okay, that's good. Never work with children or animals. Wilhelmina, come on.
After a week at sea, Cooktown is the first chance to go ashore. Those on watch have to stay on board, along with a few with injuries like Shane. He's had a mysterious spreading pain for a while now, though he puts on a brave face.
What are you carrying, Shane?
I've got a pinched nerve in my neck, but it's gone all the way to my shoulder and my rib cage.
It's an old masturbatory injury.
Nightmare.
It's a pinch something, but it's not a nerve in his neck.
Apparently it's good for your eyesight, but not so good for your ribs. So I had an absolute nightmare in the cot last night and got some drugs from here this morning, which seemed to do the trick. Yeah, but sore though. A bit fragile. So everyone's been really nice to me. And I'm not allowed to go aloft, which is probably not such a bad thing.
It's good for the rig.
Cooktown's an important site for historians, as for botanists, because this is the place where Cook spent 7 weeks and where he really engaged with the landscape and the people. He landed absolutely where he had to, and it was the boat severely holed with a chunk out of it the size of a man's fist.
And letting in a lot of water.
Letting in a lot of water, although they'd fothered and they'd managed a remarkable job. But he found this spot, beached the boat, leaning it over, and then they worked to fix it.
And to do that, they had to take down the topmasts and all the running rigging and the yards to lighten the top of the ship. And just imagine the work of putting those back up and re-rigging the running rigging.
Is there a track up there I can see?
There's a walk up Mount Cook, and it probably goes up there. That's one of the northernmost tips of the wet tropics area. There's a rare pandanus up there, apparently.
For the botanists Tom and Lucy, this is the first real opportunity to collect plants in the very same area that botanist Joseph Banks explored back in 1770.
You sure we can't stay here for a few days?
Exactly. Can we?
I can see we're going to run out of time.
If Tom and Lucy have limited time for exploration, Banks had an excess of it. Young, ambitious, and immensely wealthy, he had actually put up 10,000 pounds of his own money to help finance the voyage, hoping to discover new plant species. The need to repair the ship's hull, which ended up taking nearly 2 months, proved a blessing in disguise. Banks was able to collect more than 30,000 plant specimens during this voyage. The seeds were eventually used to establish the Royal Botanic Gardens at Kew in London. And when he wasn't collecting plants, he loved to hunt.
A strange animal has been glimpsed and much talked about by those hunting. In gathering plants today, I myself had the good fortune to see the beast. To compare it to a European animal would be impossible. Its forelegs are extremely short and of no use to it in walking. Its hind legs, again, are disproportionately long. With these, it hops, 7 or 8 feet in each hop.
Cook immediately saw an opportunity to feed his men.
Land animals are scarce in these parts, but the sort that is in the greatest plenty is the kangaroo. This day a small one was shot, 28 pounds clear of entrails. We dined on the animal and thought it excellent food.
No, it's actually it's very short.
Local delicacies in Cooktown also greet the 21st century Endeavour crew. After a week of salted meat, porridge, and ship's biscuits, this, for some, is just too irresistible.
It's simply scavenging food from the indigenous people, which is exactly what Cook did. We arrived here, and the indigenous civilization happens to be one of the best fish and chip shops in all of Australia. And so we simply wouldn't want to offend the natives by not taking what they have to offer.
I can't believe all these people are so weak-willed. Look at all of them. You don't see me with a Coke, do you, Chris?
Did you get it all down before the cameras got up here, Cole?
Exactly.
Prove it.
Yeah, and I dream of this on the Endeavour.
I cheated a little bit when we got off the ship. I tried not to. I didn't want to. I wanted to stay in 18th century, but when someone is standing there, you know, handing you fish and chips, you just can't turn it down. You just can't.
Sack me, send me home, don't care. I've got an ice cream.
If the ship was going to dictate that we were able to go ashore, then we're going to go ashore, and I was going to buy cigarettes, and I was going to buy candy, and I was going to do everything. And I think pretty much everyone felt the same way.
It says on the front, the great taste of Australia. This is what Cook was trying to achieve. I'm just doing it my own and unique way. I can't resist a pie, come on.
The replica of the Endeavour was built, I think it was built in '94, but recently built, but an exact replica, perfect in every detail. It's very symbolic, you see, the ship for Australia, because it really was the ship that started the whole colonisation process, for better or for worse. It started the whole colonisation process, which led to the creation of modern Australia. So it's a very important symbol to Australia. As I say, for better or for worse, because it's a very different sort of symbol for indigenous Australians, that is to say Aboriginal people, as opposed to white European settlers. And that's something actually we look at in the series.
Captain James Cook charted 25% of the world's oceans in his 11 years of voyaging.
You can't go past the fact that this man was a brilliant sailor. We've discovered a kind of new respect for him, I think, as a sailor. That's one thing we've learnt from the boat. But he's come to stand for a hell of a lot more than that. And I think he's come to stand for some indigenous people, for the the imperialistic imposition, really, of European ways on this country. He's a hero for the British. I think they needed a hero at that time. I think when we talk to some of the other people around here, you'll have a very different take on him.
Captain Cook isn't our hero. He done the wrong thing. He definitely done the wrong thing. Our society was running fine before Captain Cook and Australia was colonised. He's no hero to us. But even though, like, you can't change history. If he didn't come, someone else probably would have come, the French, the Dutch, or some other nation. And around that time, that was all the same.
I wonder a lot what the world would be like without conquest and missionaries and all these things. Discovery destroys things. It's the nature of it. And it all started with Cook. It all started with the British.
These natives live in a tranquility which is not disturbed by the inequality of condition. They seem to set no value upon anything we gave them. The earth and sea furnishes them with all things necessary for life.
If you're an asthmatic or start getting flu or anything, it's a medicine that you crush the leaves and then just eat the ants.
I've eaten a whole bunch of them.
Can I eat one?
Yeah. Just pick them up, stick them in your mouth. They don't bite.
The whole ant, or do you pull the
whole thing?
No, the whole ant.
Let them tail them first.
It's lemony, isn't it?
Don't chew them though.
Oh.
Do you want to?
That's actually quite
They
refreshing.
don't bite.
They don't bite.
Come on, Phil.
And you just pick up the whole ant.
Just stick him on
He's
the
a little
tip of your tongue.
ornery. I'm not sure I can. He seems like he's biting.
No, they don't bite.
And you just
Put it
take
on
the
tip
whole
of your
thing.
tongue and crush it.
Oh, he's crawling around.
Oh, just smack him.
Squeeze it before you eat it.
It's like
tasty.
Yeah, I'll have a go.
Pair of them.
Yeah, like lemony, citrusy.
Right on the tip of your
They're
tongue.
like Tic Tacs, but with legs.
Damage to the ant population.
Imagine taking in a bag of them to the cinema.
What are you after, Tom?
The Barringtonia racemosa, this is the one plant that really is special to me. It's the very first tropical plant I ever learnt when I arrived at Kew. And it always kind of fascinated me because of its use for fish poison.
We want to know if we can eat this mushroom.
Oh,
Probably not. It looks dead, actually.
Mickey, will you come taste this mushroom for us?
I'm toppers of, I'm full of, absolutely toppers of ants. Never termite. You eat, go on, you eat it. I ain't got much room for a mushroom.
You might think the Endeavour is the love boat after having one of these.
It'd have to be pretty strong hallucinogenic for that.
I don't think you want Mickey thinking the Endeavour's the love boat.
We'll be abandoning ship.
Because after all, I'm the best shag I know.
You wouldn't have caught Banks up here. Absolutely no way.
He didn't do his own climbing?
No, I think he would have sent one of his servants up, or unfortunately in those days they used to just cut down the tree if they
That's true.
if they couldn't get at it. But nowadays we don't do that.
Where's that going to fall?
Botanizing today, but the mosquito, whose peaceful dominions it seems we had invaded, spared no pains to molest us, as much as was in their power, with their intolerable stings.
Little bastards. He must have beaten 80 now.
He's just going to itch for Britain. I'm so pleased I'm not sleeping near him.
So I'll keep you all awake.
Tom, that was just magnificent.
That was good.
Your prize, sir?
Show us, Tom, what you've got.
Barringtonia racemosa.
The plant is instantly recognized by the Aboriginal guide.
They just crush the flowers and just throw them out, and it's used as a it stuns the fish.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can just walk in and pull them out.
Yep.
I mean, I couldn't put a number on it,
no,
but there's still a large proportion of stuff still undiscovered by
Westerns,
the Western world. As we all know, these forests are being destroyed, and these plants and their chemical properties, which could be beneficial to man, could be lost forever, whereas the Aborigines, they use them and they know them all.
No, they're for you. They're for you to keep.
Could we but understand the natives, or make them by any means our friends, we might perchance learn the properties of some of these plants, which might be useful for physical or economical purposes.
Ah, there she is. Yeah. Looks so innocuous from here.
What's the vehicle about torment?
Those masts look only that high.
I know. We're not going anywhere.
That looks an awfully long way out.
Where do you think we gotta go?
Their Cooktown visit over, the crew rows the mile and a half back to the ship. Back in 1770, the Endeavour was repaired as well as she could be. 7 weeks had passed and Cook was anxious to depart. He knew the ship was still weakened and would require proper repairs, but the nearest shipyard was 3,000 miles away in Indonesia. Knowing how dangerous the reefs were, Cook climbed the highest hill he could find.
From this point, I had an extensive view of the seacoast. This afforded a melancholy prospect of the difficulties we are to encounter, for in whatever direction I turned my eyes, shoals innumerable were to be seen.
The captain knew he had to break out of the Great Barrier Reef into the open sea, or else risk losing his ship for good. The only thing he had going in his favor was the Endeavour herself, actually a converted coal ship with a shallow draft of only 11 feet. Perhaps he could try and skim over the sharp coral reefs.
I never intended this to be an 18th century experience as such. We were a manifestly 21st century group of people following in the footsteps of 18th century characters, and we happened to be on an 18th century ship. But I thought it would have been a mistake to say, well, okay, let's all try to be 18th century here. Let's all wear weird, funny clothing and think like 18th century people. But hey, you can't, because that wasn't really the point. It was to see if we could sail that ship under 18th century navigational conditions. The ship was still the ship. It had an emergency engine, but that was never ever turned on. We wanted to see whether we could sail that ship in the way they would have sailed it over 200 years ago. But we could never be 18th century people.
Right, belay port side braces, firm up and belay starboard. Take your lines down to 1 turn.
Let's keep going on the course. All the way around, keep hauling away.
Cook is desperately searching for a way out of the Grand Reef, as he calls it. And he sees himself hedged in by a trap. It's like he sees these teeth, great teeth under the water, ready to tear the bowels out of his boat.
All the way. 2-6. Heat. 2-6. Heat. 2-6. Heat.
Turn, Andy. Just doing that right there. I'll keep the top turn up.
2-6. Heat. 2-6. Heat.
Course 145, Captain.
Steady on 145.
And that's it.
Let that twin right on.
What's the depth of the lead?
Depth of the lead?
7 fathoms.
Cook proceeded nervously, constantly using a lead line, a calibrated rope with a weight on the end to measure depth.
By the mark, 7.
After a week of painstaking navigation, Cook, still trapped within the reef, came across a deserted tropical island.
We're just coming up to Lizard Island, and this is kind of an irony because Lizard Island is viewed as one of the great playgrounds for the rich in Australia. It's said to be the second most expensive island resort, and it's sold as the great paradise island.
When Cook came across this beautiful tropical isle, he was consumed with anxiety. All he wanted to do really was to get ashore and get up another hill and have another look at the reefs beyond to see if he could possibly find a channel through.
To my mortification, I discovered a reef of rocks extending in a line northwest and southeast, farther than I could see, on which the sea broke very high. This, however, gave me great hopes that they were the outermost shoals, for there appeared to be several breaks or partitions in the reef with deep water. After my return, I instructed the master to take the longboat to look for a channel clear of the shoals. A reef such as this is scarcely known in Europe. A wall of coral rock rising from the unfathomable ocean, making a most terrible surf. After a time, the master made the signal for the ship to proceed. The high rolling sea increased the leaks in the ship considerably, but as soon as we were outside the reef, this was looked upon as trifling to the danger we had made our escape from.
The Endeavour and her crew had reached the safety of the open sea. The new Endeavour must now match that feat and break out of the reef on exactly the same course as Captain Cook.
We are going through a very narrow gap, so there's no room for cutting corners.
John here is actually taking a back bearing on the peak on Lizard Island, and the captain needs that to be 215 degrees, and John is reporting to him on what's going on. I'm just here watching with some trepidation the line of breakers up there, which you can see, where you can't, with the naked eye, if you don't know that there's a break there, you can't see one.
Steady, 216, true!
It's exciting. It's exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing that ocean surge come through the narrow gap and for us to shoot it and then burst into the Pacific Ocean with its well-grown seas. I think it's going to be a lot of roll and pitch and a bit more seasickness, perhaps.
According to the vet that I spoke to, though, they can't be sick. Something to do with the way their stomachs look.
Yeah.
Yes, Shane?
It feels worse than it did this morning, in fairness.
Well, I could give you more drugs after tea.
Yeah. So see you after tea.
Is that me? Is it?
Hey?
You got?
I've got a trapped nerve in my neck. It's gone through the shoulder and down to my ribs as well. It's hard to breathe. It hurts to lie down. It's just bloody painful, to be honest. This rolling sea doesn't help.
It's a bit hard for you to stand.
Get used to it.
Hey, Willie. You sit there. Good girl.
Look just there on the horizon. This great strip of surf breaking there. A cook called it a dreadful surf, and that's exactly what it looks like. And there's no sign of a break.
Okay, Sean. And it's actually hurting you when you take a breath, is it? I'm just going to feel for your windpipe now. Okay. How's your leg feeling now? Is that better?
Yeah, it's fine, yeah.
No tenderness in that calf anymore, that sort of itself down.
I hope so. I've never had anything like this before, so...
No, we'll get you comfortable as soon as we can, all right?
So what's a bit happening again?
Does it hurt when you actually move yourself around?
Yeah.
That's catching.
Yep.
And it hurts when you take a deep breath.
It hurts when I take a little breath. Ah!
Okay, Shane. Listen, one of the things I'd like to do is I'd like to put a drip in so we can give you painkillers down a drip. Okay?
Shit. You alright? You get around around me? You alright? Just hold let yourself go loose. Let yourself go loose. Let us take the weight. Alright?
All eyes!
As Shane is helped below, the rest of the crew prepares to take the ship through the Great Barrier Reef and into the Pacific through what is now called Cook's Passage.
Pull it up!
Cook had one chance to make it through. In effect, the teeth of this monster as he was seeing it at that stage. And I'm finding it really exciting. I feel as though we're going through exactly the same circumstances that he did.
Undoubtedly, my most exciting experience was diving under the ship to get the underwater shots, which we had to do in the open sea, in the Timor Sea, where nobody would have ever died before. And we went in, and I wanted to get this shot, and the ship goes right over the camera, very, very tight, right on the hull. And that was incredibly exciting, particularly as when we dived in, there were three of us. I had two buddies with me, and we were surrounded by sharks. Everywhere you looked, there were sharks. And you just had to think, just pretend they weren't there. But, so that was exciting. But actually, when the ship came up to me and just grazed over the camera, I forgot the sharks for a moment. And that was just an extraordinary experience of being so close to a ship. A very, really intimate moment, actually.
Well, I'm not dying.
Oh, no, you're not dying, but...
It is a tense time aboard the Endeavour. Below deck, Claire, the ship's doctor, worries about Shane's declining health.
Anyone feeling a good first aid moment? Would you like to try taking this thing in properly for me whilst I go in here? Can you grab hold of his forearm and squeeze like bloody hell for me? Like it's going out of fashion.
Round about there?
Somewhere around there, she's just lovely. Watch yourself, because I'm going to be using a sharp. Just turn his wrist over a little bit for me. That's good. Alright, Shane, you're going to hate me for this in just one tick, but it's only going to be a short, sharp scratch.
Look at Mickey's belly, mate.
Sharp scratch now. Don't make him laugh again, it'll hurt.
Above deck, all eyes focus on the narrow gap the ship must navigate.
It's so beautiful and yet so terrible.
You've got to mention my diary, shouldn't I?
Eh?
You've got to mention my diary.
What did it say?
It says you're whinging like a woman because you've got a bad neck.
Don't make him laugh, I think it hurts. Sam, you're a big strong lad. Can you do me a big favour?
Yep.
Straight ahead for me, Shane. I know you're being prodded and poked up from all angles, but just look straight ahead. Still getting a good oxygen. Bit of start scarring for the time. Alright, you ready? Okay.
One eye on, please.
Coming out of 215, true.
Thank you.
It's even more ferocious there. Just there. It's really gnashing its teeth.
Yeah.
I need to talk to somebody. I'm going to go up to the nav room, that end, see if I can get on the phone. Come and grab me if anything changes at all.
Claire is going to try and contact the Naval Hospital at Plymouth back in England. She now suspects Shane's condition could be extremely serious. She needs advice.
Hello, can I ask you to bleep the medical registrar for me, please? Yes, please. Yeah, it's a satellite phone from Australia. Can you bleep the medical registrar, please? 6 o'clock in the morning is not the time to get hold of a UK doctor. Hi, I wonder if you can help me. There's going to be quite a long time delay in this conversation. I'm calling you from a satellite phone off the Barrier Reef. I need your advice. Can you help me out? Can you help me? Hello, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay, my name's Claire Edwards. I'm calling you from a ship off the Great Barrier Reef. I need some medical advice. Can you help me? Hello? Hello? Hello, can you hear me now?
Someone sailing into a maelstrom.
We're heading straight for it.
Yeah, into the abyss.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Racing station!
Hello?
Stand by the warship!
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, I wonder if you can help me. I need some medical advice. I've got a 32-year-old male, complained of right pleuritic chest pain. Examining his chest, he's got decreased air entry on the right-hand side. His trachea is mildly deviated towards the right. And he has reduced expansion on the right. Did you hear that information? Hello? Oh, I've lost him. Damn!
And finally, freedom. The 21st century Endeavour, like its ancestor, reaches the safety of the open sea. But this crew, like that of the 18th century Endeavour, is not yet out of danger.